Hello and welcome back to the course on artificial intelligence. Previously, we had quite a strenuous and long tutorial on Markov decision processes, and hopefully you got along well with that, and hopefully I could explain things in a approachable and engaging way. And today we're going to talk about policies versus plans. It's going to be a quick and fun tutorial because now we're entering into a new world. We're entering into a world of stochastic search, non-deterministic search. It's not just about getting through the maze, but also accounting for random factors that might just hit you in the head when you're going through this maze, and you need to be prepared for them. That's the world our agent is living in, and it's more fun, but it's also more dangerous. It's less predictable. So how is our agent going to behave? Let's have a look. There's our Markov decision process framework, which is once again our favorite Bellman equation. However, the more advanced version of the Bellman equation we were working with. So from now on, we're just going to call this the Bellman equation. And here we've got our maximum across all actions. So the value of a state, any state S, is the maximum across all actions that an agent can possibly perform in that state. And the maximum was taken from the reward that the agent will get by performing action A in state S plus a discount factor multiplied by the expected value of the new state it will be in. And the expected value is taken here because it doesn't know exactly what state it'll end up in. There are some random effects that are present in the environment that might alter the state, and he might not end up in the desired state. He might end up in a different state. That's why we're taking the expected value over here, this sum over here. So let's have a look at this as our example, or in our example of the maze. So this is what we had previously. So previously we were dealing with deterministic search. So we knew that, all right, so if I'm here, I definitely need to go here. If I'm here, I definitely need to go here. If I'm here, I definitely need to go here. If I'm here, I'm here. So it was all pretty straightforward. Once you have this map, and remember we called it a plan. Once you have the plan, it's pretty straightforward what you need to do. There are our arrows. So that's the plan with the arrows. And from here, it was very straightforward. These are the routes that the agent would take. Wherever you start on this blue line, that's exactly the way you would go. However, now we don't have a plan anymore. We can't have a plan because, whatever we plan might not happen. It's not under our control. A plan is when you know exactly what you need to do next. You know the steps. So you have a starting point, you have a goal, and you know every single step, so you can plan them out. You're like, I'll do this one, I'll do this one, I'll do this one, like in life, like a plan. But at the same time, there's so much now randomness going on. You can't have a plan because what if you get here and then you click to the right and actually takes you down? So that's not part of your plan. So that's why it's not called a plan anymore. And here we're going to calculate the values, or we're actually going to just look at the calculated values for this same problem, but given that we have this randomness inside. So these are the new values. And so why are these values different? So let's just compare it to what we had previously. This is what we had previously. These are the new values. So once again, we had previously, you can see 1, 0.9, 0.81, 73, 66. And this is what we have now, 86, so less than 1, 74, 71, 63, and so on. And by the way, these are not exactly the correct values. These are off the top of my head, but if we were to run an agent, some values would be something similar to this. And the values could change because depending on the gamma that we choose, 0.9 or other value. But nevertheless, for argument's sake, these are the values that we're dealing with now. And they're approximate. They convey the whole notion in the correct way. So let's have a look at them. Why have they changed? Well, here, let's start with this one. Here the value was 1. Why is it all of a sudden 0.86? Why is it less than 1? Can't we just go from here? Well, we actually can't, because from here, if we go right, which is our intention, if we go right, we would actually, with a 10% chance, we'd end up here. So we'd hit the wall and we'd be back in this state. And remember, we have a gamma, so the value would be discounted. Or with a 10% chance, we would end up here in this state. So it's not 100% probability I would get here. So therefore, this value can no longer be a 1. It's something less. And let's say it's 0.86. So that's an example of why it's like this. And you could get the exact value if you calculated the Bellman equation, the full Bellman equation that we have now. The only problem is that there'd be some recursion because you would need to know the value for this, and then you would need to know the value for this. It's quite complex, and that's why we're not doing the calculations manually here. That's why but the AI can do them as it's going through all of this. It's like nothing too complex for the AI to calculate these things. So that's our value here, but now let's look at a different one. So here it used to be 0.9 just because of the discounting factor, remember, from here to here. Again, now from here, we can't just jump from here to here simply because even if we jump, if we go like this, we might end up back here, right? There's 20% chance that we'll still stay in the square because we'll hit a wall. And again, and so on. So the value of being here is 0.71. Again, the discounting factor, this might look odd to you that this is, even with the discounting factor, this is too high. Maybe the discounting factor in this example is not 0.9, maybe it's 0.99 or something like that. So don't worry about that. Just kind of like focus on that the values have indeed changed, that the values are now less, mostly because it's not 100% probability to get to the state that you want to get. And what you will find an interesting one is here, that here it used to be 0.9 and it actually has dropped very much. It's dropped substantially. Why is that? Well, because if you go from here up, which is our intention, there's a 10% chance of hitting the wall, but there's a 10% chance of actually ending up in the fire pit and losing -1 to your reward. And basically that means for the agent, that's end of the game. And so this is a very bad state to be in. So all of a sudden, remember, we had 0.9 here, 0.9. So they were equivalent. It doesn't matter you here or here. They're pretty much equal in terms of value of being in each of these states. But now all of a sudden, bam, this state is like nearly twice as good as this one, simply just because here, if you go straight you go right where you want to go, the consequences of the randomness occurring is you just stay here. Here, one of the consequences, the 10% chance, is you end up in the pit. So as you can see, this is no longer such a good state anymore, simply because of that fluctuation that could happen. As you can see, this one is also very bad because it's as bad as this one in terms of, there's only 10% chance of ending up in the pit and 10% chance of ending up in the wall. But at the same time, there's the discounting factor. So first of all, the discounting factor, and also after this one, you'd have to go here. And even if you hypothetically went here, you could end up in the pit again. So that chance would also be taken into account, because remember, this value is derived from this value and this value is derived from this value, right? And therefore it's smaller. But in reality, actually, what I said there was wrong. This value is not derived from this value. So if you just have a look now, you will notice that this value, V over here, is actually greater than this one. You will notice that for the agent, it's better to go around this way than this way. And it makes sense, right? Because this way, it doesn't lose. There's no chance of getting in the pit. Yes, it's a bit longer, and therefore the discounting factor has a bigger effect. But at the same time, simply because there's a chance of getting in the pit here, if it goes straight, there's a chance of it jumping in the pit. So it'd rather take its time, and it'll just like go around, because that way there's a much lesser chance of it getting a pit. There still is. So if from here it goes there, if from here it goes there, it could potentially get into the pit, because it could end up there and then it could end up in the pit. But nevertheless, it's a lesser chance, so it would just go around like that. So very interesting to see how the route changed. Remember, previously from here you would go like that, from here you'd go like that, and from here you'd go like that. And now all of a sudden you can see it's changed. So let's draw the arrows and see what it looks like now. And oh, voila, you see even a more random thing, right? So yes, this is true, but look at what happened here. Look at this one, and look at this one. Were you expecting that? That's something definitely, like when I saw this for the first time, I was very impressed. I was not surprised. I was surprised, and I was not expecting this at all. And this is an example of, when AI can outsmart a human. It's like something you can't even predict, but the AI, through reinforcement learning, remember that example of the dogs that can actually sometimes walk better than normal real life dogs, or pre-programmed robot dogs, or can play soccer, simply because they come up with these ideas that even we can't see. And so that's a great example, right? So you probably weren't expecting that as well, that the agent, instead of going up, it's like, why would if I go up, then there's a 10% chance I'll jump into the pit. But what does it achieve by going into the wall? Well, 80% of the time it'll bump back and stay in this state, but 10% of the time it'll go here, and 10% of the time it'll go here. So all of a sudden you can see that now it's actually, in this new approach of jumping into the wall, there is a 0% chance it will go into the fire pit from this spot. So, and it's like, it really doesn't want to go into the fire pit. So it rather bounce into the wall a couple of times, and then it will go either right or left at some point, because that randomness is going to happen. And so it learned that through experimentation. It learned that, okay, when I go forward, the results are not as good as when I go to the wall. And if you think about it, it's like this robot. If you think about it, like there's a fire pit, this square is like a very tiny ledge, and then this is like a mountain, like a cliff, and this robot is just hugging the cliff and just, like trying to waiting until it like pushes it right or left. Because, well, as a human, you'd probably do the same. You wouldn't be standing facing that way or that way. You'd be hugging the cliff, right, or something like that. And hopefully you never end up in a situation like that. But like visually, if you think about it, same thing here. And so that's pretty intense, right? So that the AI came up with this idea. And same here, that instead of going left and risking getting a fire pit, I'm just going to try bounce off the wall, like, hug the wall, try to jump into the wall. And at some point I know that, just there's a probability, there's a 10% chance every time I do that, I'll go here and sometimes it will happen and I'll end up here and I'll be safe. And then I'll just keep going like that. So very, very interesting approach that the AI took here. And as you can see, the routes are like this. So from here, it might go right and then it'll go right to the exit, or here it'll go left like that. And here it will, at some point, it will go left and it'll go like that. Again, this is important to understand. It's not a policy. So even when it jumps from here, it will go here, maybe, and then from here it might actually, instead of going straight, it might actually go back to the right, and then from here it might go to the left, it might go to the right. So there's lots of different options for it to go. So it might not follow exactly this arrow, it might go the other way. This is just the desired routes that it's designed for itself, but the way it'll work out is actually could be different. It depends on the real world. So there we go. That's the world of artificial intelligence. That's what a policy versus a plan is. And hopefully you're slowly getting excited by what the AI can do, especially given what we saw over here. These are some very virtuoso type of decisions that the AI is coming up with. And as you can see, when you apply AI, even from this small example, you can see that even when you apply AI in the real world, maybe you'll come up with ideas and decisions that even sometimes humans can't come up with. And that's exactly kind of like what happened in those games where the Google AlphaGo was playing versus Lee Sedol, the champion of Go in Korea, back in the world champion of Go, and they were playing in Korea back in 2016. I think it was March 2016. It came up with some moves that humans had never played in 3,000 years, or humans were not used to playing. And this is exactly an example of that. So once again, hope you're getting excited and pumped about this course and about what we're going to create. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, enjoy AI.